am so blessed to have Tera Ng with us here today. She is a change leader, a catalyst, a builder, but she's also a mom and a friend. I had the great pleasure of working closely with Tera through a training program that the two of us went through together in the coaching arena, and I was instantly connected to the way that Tera asked questions and how she listened to other people. It was absolutely beautiful to see. And Tera, I'm just so grateful to have you with us here today. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you about your mission and your why and how that's evolved over time in your life, Tera. So tell us a little bit about what your current mission is.
Thanks for asking. So my current mission is to be a connector. And I think that starts with the people in my life. And I'm very fortunate to have just the most amazing people in my life from, just amazing walks of life. But I also see all of their sort of superpowers. There's, special skills, experience, knowledge, the way that they care and love. And what I do is connect them, and I connect people and facilitate, that sort of synergy. And once they kind of connect and they launch, they're networking, they're collaborating, they're partnering, they made a new friend. That process gives me so much joy. And then they kind of go off, and whether they come back to me or not doesn't matter. I think it's the joy of connecting. And many times, I'm able to multiply, my network because, in the process of me connecting them, they connect me to, the gems in their life. And so it does come back. And I just feel so blessed with just such a wide network of just amazing people in my life, personally, professionally, in my neighborhood, just various circles. So
I saw that in action when we were, yeah, I did. As, like I said, in your introduction, right? I mean, I watched you listening so intently and then connecting people and referencing back to things that other people had said. And so obviously that's a natural gift, or maybe one that you've worked on over time, I would imagine. So tell me, as you think about that and being this super connector who connects people, and then obviously the byproduct of that sounds like it does come back and honor and bless you as well. But how do you measure how you're doing on that mission? What does that look like for you?
That's a really deep question. I think that I go into it wanting to be of service to those people. And it is with a servant mindset, a servant, leadership mindset that I go into the work that I do professionally. And then it's, reflected in the way that I live my life every day. I'm really the same person. And my values and principles and my integrity is exactly the same, whether I am, it doesn't matter where I'm really the same person. And it's a very liberating way to live, because I don't spend any energy sort of repackaging myself.
Love that. When you can be.
It really is. It's so light and freeing. And you do it for the reason of love and of service. And that's my philosophy. It's how I live. And I am brave enough to lead with love and lead with vulnerability, that I am an imperfect person.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. I know, but I show up authentically as a flawed person. And I like to think that those who know me and work with me find it sort of charming that I could be really good at being I'm really good at the content and the subject of my job, but it took me a long time to even like figure out how to like show my video or it was a kind of technology fumble. And I'm just like, please remember, I'm a substantive person, not the style thing is not right out today.
Well, we don't have to be great at everything, right?
Yeah.
Just a few things.
It was funny because this last sort of like a candid conversation that I hosted, I enlisted a producer, and she played that role so well, and I gave her full props, and so she shined as a producer. And I'm like, I'm a director of the movie. Like, you're the producer, and you're doing great. And it all worked out. Everybody was happy. And and then I just owned it. I said, well, I can kind of fumble with the technology, but I got a producer today. Like, we're going to have a great conversation. No glitch. And sure enough, it was perfect. 90-minute perfect conversation. 44 people.
Well, isn't that part of you said a couple things that I just want to latch on to. And one of them was showing up as authentically you and being the same person, whether you're at work or you're at home or you're with friends, whatever the case is, you show up the same way because that is really who you are. And if you can transcend that, get to that stage where you don't have to feel like you're maybe faking it, there's freedom in that. There's a beautiful freedom. That's a word I caught from you, was it's very freeing, right? And then secondarily, stay in your lane. Like, we all have lanes, right? Where you're clearly great as a director, but having a producer is a good thing too, right? Let's bring that producer in to help us out. So when you do think about excellence, and I know you have experience with leading people and deep experience with that. I'd love to know, when you think about excellence in your work or your world, what does that mean to you specifically?
Oh gosh, I love that question. I think excellence to me is serving a need at the highest level, for the right reason. And by that, it could be, being a crisis counselor, for example. And the need is for compassion. The need is for love. The need is for empathy. The need is for acceptance. And if you could be attuned to that need, and you provide that, for the sole purpose of being of service to that person's needs, I think that's an example at the most primal humanistic level. That's excellence. It's serving its purpose, and it's at the highest level. No fanfare, no extra layers. It's just that.
I love that. And that can mean different things to different people. So if you're connected to your own purpose and you're living fully into it, that's excellence to you, because you're feeling like you're living into your own purpose. Is that?
I think so. I mean, excellence shows up, every day, every moment. Excellence could be a parent recognizing that her child is devastated because maybe he failed an exam, and his deepest fear is that he's not good enough, and recognizing that what that child needs most right now from you is not a lecture, not even some platitude of encouragement, but reassurance that they are loved unconditionally, and that you have the utmost belief in them, and that you are there to support them through this. And I think that's an example of excellence, in that parent-child dynamic. Similar to, a counselor, it could be a priest and a congregation member in need. Equally, it could be excellence in A business leader, you're recognizing that the staff, worked really hard, but like just got nervous and just flubbed at their presentation, and seeing the need to lift them up and not have them be discouraged or self-criticize and say, hey, that presentation probably didn't go as well as you hope. But you know what I noticed? I noticed the client got really excited when you talked about XYZ. And let's talk to that and see, how they want to move forward. And all of a sudden, you like help your staff, yes, who's like devastated. I didn't do that presentation, but pivot to what worked, and then what they sort of like what sparked, and then slowly you'll be able to coach them and give them some other guidance, but to hold on to the dignity of their self-esteem is, I think, excellence in leadership. And I described like 3 examples that are sort of hardship, if you will, sort of the, and I think excellence has to be overcoming some kind of challenge or obstacle, adversity. Excellence can't be, it just can't be like, oh, I want to run a marathon and this is my workout plan and training and here are my gears and equipments and I have great weather and there's no like real obstacle.
There's no mountain to climb.
Yeah, I stuck to a plan. Here's my training schedule. Like, here's my trainer. I'm done. And check, I achieved my goal of running a marathon. I don't think that's enough for me. Like, you have to really overcome some adversity. Adversity builds character.
Well, I believe that that's true. We know that adversity builds character, or we wouldn't be here.
Right?
Right.
I think like character is the essence, of excellence. I really, I can't emphasize that enough.
I think that is a great definition for what it means to you. And I love that as we work through these interviews with a variety of different women, that definition varies from one person to the next. But man, I pulled from you and I wrote down, see the need, fill the need, and dignity, right? Lifting people up versus tearing them down. I mean, I know there are all kinds of coaching methodologies out there, but that's one that I subscribe to most certainly, being an encourager, or we wouldn't be here having this conversation, because I think we need more of that in our world today. People who are lifting people up, who are recognizing that need and saying, hey, let me help this person, versus critique them. Right. So I think that's awesome. Tera, when you think about mindset or a mantra for yourself, right? Is there a mindset message that you live with on a daily basis, or you work to share with others beyond that which you just shared with us?
So what I just shared with you, I mean, there's one that I like, that I think around 19 years old, so 30 years ago, I had, adversity builds character. So I just said that, after the examples. The one that I use often with my girls, my 2 daughters, is, you cannot soar like an eagle if you surround yourself with pigeons. And it's really, I mean, it sounds a little harsh, but it's really about making sure that you are raising the standard. You raise your personal standard and you inspire others to do the same thing. And that in order for you to sort of take off, you need to have, your pathway cleared. And sometimes in life, especially I think with women, we allow people in our life that really drags us down, that keeps us kind of like at the ground level, even though we're meant to, to soar and fly. And we're really meant to live out our own life versus taking care of others and their needs and kind of like just be stuck with the grind. And I think as women like are listening to this, it's just keeping that in mind. Are you staying at the ground level, tending to their needs, even though you want to fly and you want to like soar like an eagle, but you're not allowing yourself to. So what do you need to do? And for me, I'm choosing, to fly, and I'm choosing my freedom, and I'm choosing to say goodbye to some folks that really kept me, down. And it's been great since. And I talk about it with my other women friends. I talk about it with my teenage daughters, and it keeps me in check.
Well, I think that that's a really, really important message for women out there that, hey, I call it my personal board of directors, right? I like to have people around me that are going to spur me on and challenge me, maybe even to go do those things. I mean, you were one of those people in my world, so thank you for that, for encouraging me and pushing me to do exactly what we're doing here today. I think that when we do surround ourselves with the right people that do have that mindset of thinking bigger and that we can do versus being the naysayers, if you will, we pay attention to the wrong people often. And we need more people in our world that are encouraging us to go do those bold things. So that's an awesome message, Tera. Let's talk a little bit about why, if you would, because I know that this mission, this place that you're at today, where you're showing up as authentically you and being in this space of freedom and making these decisions, that's not where we all start, right? We start from somewhere else. So do you have people in your history who have helped you in discovering your why and becoming that person that you are today? Or can you think of a particular moment where you went, okay, it's time?
Oh my gosh. So I don't even know how I could remember this because it was so long ago, like almost 30 years ago. But my senior year, it was like like last semester, my senior year, like during spring break, I had just returned from a study abroad program in France. So I was like maybe 22. And I had seen the world. I traveled all over Europe. I had this fantasy of a traveling job. And then I had this other choice of like being a JCPenney merchandising manager because I had been an intern the previous summer, or I could follow my heart. And I sat next to this amazing woman, just almost angelic. She came out of nowhere because it was like a midnight Greyhound bus from St. Cloud State University, which is sort of like outside of Minneapolis, to Madison, Wisconsin, where my little brother was studying and when I was visiting him. And sure enough, this woman that I sat next to in the middle of the night in a Greyhound bus, she is this worldly woman who had been living in St. Thomas, the Caribbean island. And she was just, a very frugal person and was taking the Greyhound as well. And so I talked to her about, I'm graduating. I just studied in France. And I have few job prospects. One is a merchandising manager at JCPenney, or I could make a lot less money, but I could travel as an international travel director out of St. Louis. And even though, as I was sort of telling her my two choices, I already knew what I wanted to do. And she only had to ask me a few questions. And I said, I want to travel. I don't care, I don't care about a stable job. I want to see the world. And that's what I did. I graduated on a Friday. I took a 10:30 flight the next morning from Minneapolis to St. Louis. And I was in China for a training trip through, it was LAX to Japan, Japan to all over China, and then China to Hong Kong, back to LAX. It was like a 17-day trip. And that was my training trip. That was my first job out of college, 2 weeks out of college, first training job. And I was an international travel director. I led tour groups around the world, and my passengers were the upper 2% back then in the early 90s. Retired doctors, lawyers, CEOs, and I did everything. I was essentially like an international tour director, and I managed, it's like the hotels, the logistics, the bus driver, the tour guides, the national destination managers, and I catered at a high level, first class, to my passengers who they wanted an airplane. I would probably airplane. It was, that type of deluxe. Service.
That must have been a fantastic learning experience. I mean,
it was a dream job. I traveled to 19 countries from 22 years old to 23 years old. I spent my 23rd birthday on the beach of St. Bart's, getting off, the Royal Princess cruise line. And it was an amazing role. And it was in part to just listen to my heart. And you really, if you listen to your heart and you listen to your intuition and you hear and you make, and you are still enough to hear that sweet whisper, you know what you need to do. You know the answer. Sometimes we anguish over a decision, but if we're just still and listen, we already know. We know what to do. So I was 22 years old. I think that's the trajectory of how I got here where I am today. I have been all over the world. I have, lived in many different countries and continents and worked on Wall Street. And, that, I don't know, I've had this amazing life of extremes. So everything's all relative to me.
Yeah. Well, but following your own intuition and listen, I think we often question that. So it's sound to say, hey, you really do need to listen to yourself, quiet down all of the other voices and listen to yourself. I can only imagine the questions that she asked, but I love to hear you say she only had to ask me a few questions. And if we would slow down long enough and somebody would just ask us some good questions, we could really listen to ourselves. I think that we would probably not pass up as many opportunities as get passed up for women right today.
Exactly.
Is there any way that we can help you with your current mission today, Tera?
I would love to meet other amazing women who are on this quest for excellence, who are also on a quest to serve and make a meaningful impact in whatever areas that they can make an impact. And I love meeting people like that, because there's nothing like talking to someone who has personal clarity and purpose, and who is so driven intrinsically that really nothing else matters, because you're guided by clarity and purpose. And like, that's the way that I live now. And I can't tell you how little energy it takes for me to live my life, because I'm very guided by my true north, which is to serve.
That is a beautiful message for all. And of course, we'll put how folks can connect with you in the episode when we post it. So we will make sure that we connect with you on how you'd like those folks to connect. And I am so, so, so grateful that you shared your time today with us. Thank you, Tera.
Thank you so much, Carrie. And I love this podcast series.